Good morning, ohayou gozaimasu. Today I'd like to share with you a technique that I use to catch those stubborn fish that are easily spooked in the ponds and highly pressured ponds. And what I do is pretty much set up a trap to catch the bass. Here's the technique. So conceptually, think of this carrot as your lure and this chocolate bunny as the bass. You want to coax the bass to your lure, and when it's within striking distance, you want to pop the bait free and catch the fish. So let's look at this in more detail. So pretend this is the bank. Here's the water, about 9 feet away. That's where you tend to see usually like 2 or 3 fish just cruising along the shoreline. And those are the smart fish that the minute they hear your lure hit the water, they just swim the other way. So they're smart, they've seen everything, and they're very difficult to catch. So what you want to do is you want to find some patch of grass and get your lure snagged into it, and then when the fish come, you want to pop it free and create a reaction strike. So it's very similar to when you're fishing a lipless crankbait through the grass, and when you're yo-yoing it and popping it free from the grass and getting the reaction strike to catch the fish. So it's a variation on that basically. So here, another visual, pretend this is the grass and you want to hook your lure into it beforehand, and when the bass come, you want to pop it free. My hand is the bass, and then you get the reaction strike. And this is the bass that I caught using this technique. So I like to use hard baits with treble hooks because a lot of times they just swipe at the bait out of instinct, and you have a lot better hookup ratio when you have 2 trebles on your bait. So in this footage, I'm actually using a Hud gill, and this is after the spawn, so all the bass are off their beds and they're just chasing bluegill along the bank. So I was just throwing the Hud gill trying to get a big bass to strike. But again, the fish were not cooperating, and look at this. Look how realistic this bait looks, but still the bass were not interested at all when I was swimming the bait, even like right in front of their noses. They would just swim the other way. Even though I usually use a crankbait for this technique, I tried using a Hud gill and I got pretty lucky. So I noticed the fish were coming down this area here and making a U-turn and then swimming back. So once I saw the fish here swimming back, instead of changing my bait to a crankbait, because the sun was already up pretty high, so I was just too lazy to switch out my lure. So I figured I'll try using this technique with the Hud. So I found an area around here that looked like, what would be like a good ambush point for the bass, and then I rested the Hud gill in the grass. And then basically I just waited. I didn't edit any of this footage here, so it's gonna take a couple of moments, but I just wanted to show this whole thing from cast to catch. So basically right now I'm just waiting for the fish to come back and swim right by my lure. And this is kind of like the bad part about this technique, is that it does take some patience. I think the most I've ever waited was like 40 minutes to catch one fish using this technique. But again, this technique I usually use when I'm getting skunked, nothing else seems to work. I'm about to leave the lake, but I just want to try it, one last time to see if I can catch a fish. And I think around here is when the fish were starting to swim up, and I'm slowly trying to get their attention. I think here by now they're slowly starting to kind of inspect what's creating like the commotion, like in the grass. And then right when you notice that they noticed your lure, you want to jiggle it, just kind of like a shaky head on slack line. So you'll see me start jiggling it. Yes, I think around here, that's when the fish are closing in on the lure. And then in this situation, I didn't even get to pop the bait. The fish just inhaled the bait. And it should happen any moment now, I think. Yep, there I go. Okay, and here I messed up. I didn't have my reel in gear, so I had to put it in gear, tighten the drag, and luckily the fish was still on. And I apologize about the awkward camera angle of my GoPro. So after taking a few photos, I quickly released the fish. Okay, so I took some underwater footage of what the lure looks like when using this technique. And here, the cool thing about this technique is that you can totally hide your line. So then, A, the fish don't see your line. B, the fish don't hear the lure hitting the water because you've already set up the trap to catch the fish. And if you jiggle it, and then if you start jiggling it very slightly like a shaky head, it really captures the attention of the bass. And in this case, I was super lucky. Usually it's one of the smaller, more aggressive fish that tend to hit the lure. But this time, what happened was the smaller fish came, and then right before it was about to hit it, the larger fish actually came out of nowhere and hit the bait. So it was kind of like a reaction strike. So I was quite surprised when I was able to catch the larger fish in the group. So yes, you want to jiggle it, and when the bass come to inspect it. In this moment, usually if it's a hard bait, you want to pop it free. But in this, when I was using the Hud Gill, I never used this bait for this technique, so I didn't even have a chance to pop it free. The bass just hit it before I can even do anything. And it worked out, so I was lucky. So that's my very, very pathetic hook set. But luckily the fish was still on and I lucked out. So again, next time you see some cruising bass, set up a trap for them. Have the lure in a good place where you think that fish are going to pass by. And these are the lures that I tend to use when I am using this technique. So these are all bluegill patterns by Lucky Craft. You should use something that matches the hatch in your pond with the size and the colors too as well. So this one is one pattern that I have had a lot of success with, but again, experiment, see what works in your pond. That is all, and thanks for watching.